Vang Pao likes nothing better than playing the role of an Oriental George Patton and personally directing counter-battery fire. The first battle of Long Chen was reaching its climax, and only the performance of the charter planes enabled the secret army to turn almost certain defeat into at least a temporary standoff.
Even if the North Vietnamese could take over all our territory, we will take to the jungle to carry on the fight against them, no matter how long it takes, 50 or even 100 years. We will keep on fighting until the North Vietnamese get out of our land.
This is the famous Skyline Ridge, the keystone of the defensive position at Long Chen. We're getting mortar fire in here right now from the North Vietnamese divisions which surround this place, which is why everybody is staying so low. In the past few minutes, we've had mortar rounds land within 15 yards of here.
I know it, we're damn close. Well, you've been getting 2 rounds, 3 rounds every 10, 15 minutes. How many kids did they get?
Though many of its recruits are under 16, the secret army has been the toughest force opposing the communists in Laos. Now the North Vietnamese are making an all-out effort to destroy it. This week, there is still heavy fighting around Longcheng. The secret army now has men from various ethnic groups, but it began among the Mao hill tribes. The Mao, or Hmong as they call themselves, are a fiercely independent people who thrive in the rugged highlands. Today, most are refugees, clinging to those patches of the mountains still under government control. Despite 10 years of defeat and suffering, most have remained staunch allies of America. Today, with other hill tribes, they are still the backbone of the secret army and make it the closest thing to a people's army on the government side. They have paid dearly for their commitment. Their camps are built of the debris of war. They move constantly, shifting locations as the war sweeps back and forth across their mountains. At each new spot, they dig in to await the next attack. When there's time between moves, they still plant their opium poppies. For centuries, opium was their only cash crop. But the war has reduced the crops to the point where the Hmong smoke most of it themselves. This is Boum Long, 45 miles from the North Vietnamese border and the only major secret army base left in the far north. To get here means a long flight over enemy territory with the pilots dodging anti-aircraft positions. The only link with the outside world is the airstrip, and it is frequently closed by enemy shell fire. There are 6,000 people here. Only a few hundred are soldiers advised by the CIA. The rest are women and children. Boum Long is called the fortress in the sky, and it's a fortress under siege. The people spend most of their time repairing the damage from the last enemy attack and digging deeper for the next one. The local Hmong commander requires each family to dig and maintain its own bunker. Casualties have been high, including hundreds of civilians. Manpower is so scarce that some positions are guarded only by straw dummies. Because of its strategic location, the Hmong and their CIA advisors are determined to hold Boum Long as possible. That may not be much longer. Each year, the enemy assaults become heavier. The defenses are littered with the bones of North Vietnamese soldiers who have died here. This week, the Secret Army has been using these positions to attack enemy supply routes. The object, to relieve pressure on Long Chen. If Long Chen falls, Boum Long will almost certainly be next. For years, this compound in the village of Long Chen was one of the most secret spots on Earth. This was headquarters for the CIA and the Secret Army in Laos. It was a little bit of America, crammed with sophisticated electronic gear. Journalists called it Spook Heaven. This year, Spook Heaven has become part of the front line. The CIA has moved to a new location. We talked to a CIA man assigned to the Secret Army. The agency calls him a case officer. He's a civilian, but in any other war, he'd be called a military advisor.
Just what do you CIA men do up here?
Well, first of all, let me set the record straight that we do not command any of the combat troops. Our primary role is one of supporting the indigenous Lao forces in MR2. That support involves a number of things. Some of it is technical advice. A great deal of it is training. It involves advice. Well, our advice is one of keeping them informed on what is possible with the resources that are available.
What are we trying to accomplish up here?
Well, the primary aim of the United States government in Laos is to assist the people of Laos to have the kind of government that they want to have. Our job is not one of telling them how to run the war or of having the war become our war. And so far, we have been able to conduct this with very, very few Americans.
The man who commands most of the Secret Army is General Vang Pao. He is a Hmong tribesman who worked closely with the CIA in organizing the Hill people. Today, along with his Secret Army role, he also commands all Lao forces in the most crucial military region. We found him helping his soldiers repair shell holes in the airstrip near his headquarters. He is definitely not an armchair general. He's part warlord, part tribal father figure, and the most effective military leader in Laos today. When the war permits, Vang Pao spends most of his time with other tribal leaders. The Hmong look to him for leadership in politics as well as fighting. But in the tribal hierarchy, Vang Pao is not a dictator, but a sort of first among equals. Decisions are reached only after the traditional long discussions with other clan chiefs. But Vang Pao's favorite spot is the front line. Some of his American CIA advisors complain that VP, as they call him, spends too much time in the foxholes and not enough time plotting grand strategy. But the fact is the soldiers, especially the Hmong soldiers, fight best when VP is around. And despite his advisors, Vang Pao is not about to change his style, even when his arrival attracts enemy mortar fire. Vang Pao likes nothing better than playing the role of an Oriental George Patton and personally directing counter-battery fire.
General, what have we got over in that position we're shooting at?
120 mortar.
A 120 mortar?
Yeah.
Well, that makes it interesting.
Yeah.
We're up on Skyline Ridge, which in terms of the war in Laos is likely to become a legend like Heartbreak Ridge in Korea or Hamburger Hill in Vietnam. These holes we're sitting in right now, up until about 48 hours ago, were occupied by one of the best North Vietnamese regiments there is. All these positions off to our front here are occupied by the North Vietnamese.
The secret army was not designed to slug it out with North Vietnamese divisions. Their performance at Long Chen has surprised most experts. But the fighting there is heavier than ever, and no one knows how long they can keep it up. Casualties in this year's battles have been the heaviest ever. They are evacuated in American furnished planes and helicopters. Most of those who survive are treated in hospitals paid for and run by the American Agency for International Development. The dead are also flown out, wrapped in American body bags. The lightly wounded can expect to be back in the front lines quickly. They can also expect a visit from General Vang Pao, who tries to make sure they get the best care available. Frequently, he is accompanied by an aide-de-camp with a briefcase full of money. Vang Pao and his men receive their money direct from the CIA, bypassing the corruption that plagues the Lao regular army. By Lao standards, they are very well paid. Critics have suggested that the rice and money from America are the secret army's main motivation.
No amount of money or of rice or of medical treatment is going to get any young man to stand up and fight the North Vietnamese and run the very high risk of being killed or maimed for life. Because remember, these are irregulars. And they're very much like we had in the Revolutionary War in our own country. They volunteered in and they can volunteer out. The Hmong attitude is that this is his homeland. They're here and they're fighting because this is their homeland. They lose this and there's no place else for them to go.
But each year, the Hmong homeland shrinks. The battles are bigger, the casualty list longer. And there are signs of weariness among the hill tribes. Vang Pao spends a lot of time visiting the isolated Hmong settlements, trying to boost his people's morale. Except for the small local garrison, there are usually few men present. They are all away at the front. One of his unpleasant duties is to inform wives and mothers that their loved ones are dead or missing. This week, some units of the secret army refused to continue the fight at Long Chen. But they were not hill people. The Hmong are a tough and stoic race. And as long as Vang Pao is willing to lead, they seem willing to follow. The first battle of Long Chen was reaching its climax, and only the performance of the charter planes enabled the secret army to turn almost certain defeat into at least a temporary standoff. Only helicopters could land to pluck out the seriously wounded. North Vietnamese artillery was shelling the airstrip. Enemy snipers were firing up at the planes. Enemy machine guns on the hills were firing down at the planes. But the friendlies were out of water and ammunition, so the planes went in anyway. They shared the narrow airspace with fighter bombers, trying to blast the enemy off the ridge lines. To the charter pilots, it was just another mission.
Even if the North Vietnamese could take over all our territory, we will take to the jungle to carry on the fight against them. no matter how long it takes, 50 or even 100 years. We will keep on fighting until the North Vietnamese get out of our land.
These days, Vang Pao seldom sees his home or children. He has been through crises before, but this year, the military situation is worse than ever. He's troubled for the future of his children and his people. But he says he's confident that America will never simply abandon the Hill people.